Because of the four kinds of permeation, the defiled state and the pure state emerge and continue uninterrupted. They are 1. The pure state, which is called suchness. 2. The cause of all defilements, which is called ignorance. 3. The deluded mind, which is called the activating mind. And 4. The erroneously conceived external world, which is called the objects of the five senses and of the mind. The meaning of permutation. Clothes in the world certainly have no scent in themselves, but if man permeates them with perfumes, then they come to have a scent. It is just the same with the case we are speaking of. The pure state of suchness certainly has no defilement, but if it is permeated by ignorance, then the marks of defilement appear on it. The defiled state of ignorance is indeed devoid of any purifying form, but if it is permeated by suchness, then it will come to have a purifying influence. Permeation of ignorance. How does the permeation of ignorance give rise to the defiled state and continue uninterrupted? It may be said that on the ground of suchness, that is, the original enlightenment, ignorance, that is, non-enlightenment, appears. Ignorance, the primary cause of the defiled state, permeates into suchness. Because of this permeation, a deluded mind results. Because of the deluded mind, deluded thoughts further permeate into ignorance. While the principle of suchness is yet to be realized, the deluded mind, developing thoughts fashioned in the state of non-enlightenment, predicates erroneously conceived objects of the senses and of the mind. These erroneously conceived objects of the senses and of the mind, the coordinating causes and bringing about the defiled state, permeate into the deluded mind and cause the deluded mind to attach itself to its thoughts, to create various evil karma, and to undergo all kinds of physical and mental suffering. The permeation of the erroneously conceived objects of the senses and of the mind is of two kinds. One is the permeation that accelerates deluded thoughts, and the other is the permeation that accelerates attachments. The permeation of the deluded mind is of two kinds. One is the basic permeation by the activating mind, which causes arhats, pratyekabuddhas, and all bodhisattvas to undergo the suffering of samsara. And the other is the permeation that accelerates the activities of the object-discriminating consciousness, and which makes ordinary people suffer from the bondage of their karma. The permeation of ignorance are of two kinds. One is the basic permeation, since it can put into operation the activating mind, and the other is the permeation that develops perverse views and attachments, since it can put in operation the object-discriminating consciousness. Permeation of suchness. How does the permeation of suchness give rise to the pure state and continue uninterrupted? It may be said that there is the principle of suchness, and it can permeate into ignorance. Through the force of this permeation, suchness causes the deluded mind to loathe the suffering of samsara and to aspire for nirvana. Because of this mind, though still deluded, is now possessed with loathing and aspiration, permeates into suchness in that it induces suchness to manifest itself. Thus, a person comes to believe in his essential nature, to know that what exists is the erroneous activity of the mind, and that the world of objects in front of him is non-existent, and to practice teachings to free himself from the erroneously conceived world of objects. He knows what is really so, that there is no world of objects in front of him, and therefore, with various devices, he practices courses by which to conform himself to suchness. He will not attach himself to anything, nor give rise to any deluded thoughts. Through the force of this permeation of suchness over a long period of time, his ignorance ceases. Because of the cessation of ignorance, there will be no more rising of the deluded activities of mind. Because of the non-arising of the deluded activities of mind, the world of objects as previously conceived ceases to be. Because of the cessation of both the primary cause, namely ignorance, and the coordinating cause, namely objects, the marks of the defiled mind will all be nullified. This is called gaining nirvana and accomplishing spontaneous acts. The permeation of suchness into the deluded mind is of two kinds. The first is the permeation into the object-discriminating consciousness. Because of this permeation, ordinary people and the Hinayanists come to loathe the suffering of samsara, and thereupon each, according to his capacity, gradually advances toward the highest enlightenment. The second is the permeation into mind. Because of this permeation, bodhisattvas advance to nirvana rapidly and with aspiration and fortitude. Two kinds of permeation of suchness into ignorance can be identified. The first is the permeation through manifestation of the essence of suchness, and the second is the permeation through external influences. The essence of suchness is, from the beginningless beginning, endowed with the perfect state of purity. It is provided with suprarational functions and the nature of manifesting itself. Because of these two reasons, it permeates perpetually into ignorance. Through the force of this permeation, it induces a person to loathe the suffering of samsara, to seek bliss in nirvana, and, believing that he has the principle of suchness within himself, to make up his mind to exert himself. According to the translator, the perfect state of purity is identified by Fazang with the original enlightenment of non-emptiness, the nature of manifesting itself. The original Chinese of this phrase can be literally translated as the nature of making the world of object. Taken literally, the phrase makes little sense, though commentators have usually tried to take it that way. For example, Tan Yan, who lived from 516 to 588, the oldest commentator whose work has been preserved, went so far as to interpret it as a magical creation of the objects of the senses. Suchness, in an absolute sense, can never be an object or objects. When objectified, it is no longer the absolute, but turns into a relative. Quote, making the world of object, close quote, therefore should be taken symbolically as suggesting, quote, revealing itself, or manifesting itself from within, etc. It does not objectify itself externally, but is internally asserting its absolute subjectivity in human beings.